Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Trying a new lipstick shade today. It's still another one of the Maybelline matte shades. I love to wear my lipsticks on these lives because obviously out in the real world, the lipsticks are evidently pointless because I'm wearing a mask and stuff all the time. So tonight is going to be an interesting topic for me. Obviously, just putting myself out there again, which I'm pretty much used to doing, and I don't really care about the judgment of people knowing that oh great, I've got lipstick on my sweater. I care more about being a resource for somebody else who may be going through the same thing versus trying to hide my issues that I'm going through, because I feel like that's our biggest issue with mental health, is that people are afraid to talk about their mental health struggles, afraid to say that they have issues, afraid that they're going to be judged, afraid of the stigmas. And it's time we move past that, because people are never going to be healed and people are never going to get past their trauma if they don't talk about it. And yeah, they don't need to maybe they don't need to broadcast it on the live stream like me, but I hope I encourage us to talk about it. So let's see where to start. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I have been a huge Star Wars fan since 7th grade. I know that seems kind of late. I was not introduced to Star Wars when I was a kiddo. I got introduced to Star Wars in middle school. My friend Kayla took me to see the re-edited version of Return of the Jedi, because they did the digitally enhanced version, and it re-released in theaters when I was in 7th grade. And the very first Star Wars movie I ever saw was the last one, was Return of the Jedi. So I really was kind of watching it out of context, but it was enough of a capture for me to understand what was happening that I fell in love with it, and I went back and I watched everything Star Wars related. I was obsessed with Star Wars. I was a babysitter for like a week. I used all that money to buy Star Wars things, and my favorite character was Vader. And it's funny because Vader is supposed to be like, the villain. He's the bad guy. Villain shouldn't be your favorite character. But my niece, her favorite character is actually Thanos. So my niece and I have a little bit of things in common. Because I don't know why sometimes villains can be a favorite character. I think sometimes if the villain has to be worthy to make the movie great. Nobody wants a weak villain. Like, then what's the point? It's like, oh, well, anybody could have beat him if he's a weakling. And I guess Vader to me was always just complicated, and I loved his redemption story. I love the fact that he, was so big and bad and mean and whatever, but at the end of the day, he still couldn't kill his own son, and he still, he still had that moment in him where he's still good. And so I feel like I always relate to Vader, especially after the other movies came out and you kind of saw Vader's demise. His fall from grace. And it really is sad, even though I hate how the prequel did it. They really botched it up. They rushed it too much. There's so many things. Like, I could do a whole post on why I hate the Star Wars prequels. But the point is, it's sad. You see somebody who's really great, a little boy with so much talent, go from that to literally walking into a Jedi temple slaughtering children. And you're like, how do we go from here to here? How? And the thing they say about the dark side is anger, fear, and aggression, sadness, all this stuff leads to the dark side. And it's a very hard task to be a Jedi. Love and everything. Like, they can't have regular emotions, because the emotions get in their way and they become compromised. And I just can't imagine like being someone who could never be afraid, or, well, I don't think they really can't be that, but they need to really like not be affected by those emotions. And Anakin, unfortunately, was greatly affected, and he did some unfavorable things based on his emotions. And that's kind of where I am. So for me, like, I have probably three extreme emotions that I deal with on the daily. I'm an empath. So I feel everything more. Even if it's happy, I feel it. If it's sad, if it's not happening to me, I feel it intensely, like what other people are going through. It's more than sympathy. It actually leads to vicarious trauma for me too, which leads to anxiety, because if something terrible happens to somebody else, I kind of relive it in my mind, or I relive like, what if that was me, if it happened to me? And it's terrible, actually. I mean, sometimes I can't sleep because I can't compartmentalize. Like, whenever there's an airplane crash, I imagine myself being on that airplane and what my final moments would have been, and what I would have been thinking about right before I died. Or if it's a car accident or somebody got raped or murdered, I'm always like, what were her final moments? That's why, like, when I watch things, it's really hard. Like, George Floyd really like killed me for weeks. I mean, I'm sure like it hurt everybody, but like, I relived his like final moments in my mind of like what it's like to be sitting there knowing you're slowly being killed. And so maybe people don't do that intensely, but I do. And that's why I was that's why I feel things so much more. That's why I feel like I get so angry about certain stuff, because I put myself in those situations. It's more than just being on the outside looking in. I evoke whatever these people might have been feeling. I don't know what they were feeling. I just put my own spin on it, but that's enough for me. So that's the empath part. And then I get traumatized. Okay. So then I get traumatized by these thoughts, and it leads to my anxiety. So then I'm afraid it's going to happen to me. Every time I see a cop now, I have anxiety. When I get on planes, like my biggest anxiety thing is flying, because there was one year where there were a whole bunch of airplane crashes, and now I've internalized that, and that has become my biggest anxiety fear, which is why I hate flying. So I have really bad anxiety, and it's usually related to anything related to death. That has always been at the core of my anxiety. Like, I know it's unavoidable. Everybody dies. There's nothing you can do. You can't live your life in fear to try to stay alive. But for some reason, I can't get the fear of like, so what if I drive wrong today? Or what if I get on this is the airplane? And so I have like these really strong anxiety emotions. It doesn't matter how much I think about it. It wouldn't stop the result. I could have all the anxiety in the world, and if my plane's going to crash, it didn't save me, right? Having anxiety, right? I just put myself through all this, and there was nothing I could do about it anyway. And so those are my two, empath and anxiety. I would say my third emotion for me is anger. And as you can see, because I feel everything strongly, I feel happiness very strongly. I feel anger very strongly. And I want to say I'm bipolar because I've never been diagnosed with bipolarity, but I would say that like I can have the extreme on either end, be extremely happy about something, like crying and like super cry, and then like so angry. Like I see red and I want to like throw things and do craziness. So I have like three emotions that I battle with, but luckily not all of them manifest at the same time or whatever. I do seem to have specific triggers for when those come out in droves. So let's go back and talk about the anger, because that was really what started this whole podcast. And I swear to goodness, every time I do a podcast, something is in this left eye. It is like clockwork. I swear. My anger started manifesting probably when I was in fourth grade. My first anger management therapy was in fourth grade. And I don't know, my mom and dad are on here. I can't even really remember what triggered me. I think something happened. I just got really angry. I don't know if I was trying to punch a wall. And I don't feel like punching a wall or punching a pillow or something, or like, I swear to God, my eye, or abnormal. I think people do these things probably not to hit somebody else, but I think I would also have these screaming, and I would get so upset that my stomach was hurt, and I start breathing deeply. Like my anger was like almost borderline panic attack because I was so angry. And so my parents, they obviously were getting worried. I can't remember exactly what the episode was. That was the beginning trigger that made my mom want to have me go talk to an anger management therapist. But there was an incident. I don't remember what it was. I do know my mom's a social worker. And so she had, access to therapists, and she was talking to, so I had my first anger management therapy when I was in fourth grade. And I would say that I thought the guy was useless, and my mom agreed. She didn't think the person I went to was doing anything for me. Again, I so apologize. I have no idea what's in my eye, but I swear it's so distracting. It was in fourth grade, and I felt like he was useless. He didn't really help me channel my anger. I just feel like we wasted money and everything. I was just talking to him. And I think what really happened for me is I just grew up. I just grew out of that phase of being that type of angry where I'm screaming and having panic attacks. Well, at least I thought I did. I thought I had grown out of that. And I did pretty well in high school. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's sometimes when I snap. And I'm not snapping doing anything violent as far as like, mass shooting or anything or like that. But I'll snap and I'll just say the most mean, curse somebody out stuff, and I'll have a snap moment. And that's not new to me. I've had snap moments all the way in high school. One time I snapped at my band director because I think I was late to clarinet ensemble practice at one time. And he made some comment about we need to be on time or something like that. And I think I had a really bad day with school. And it seems to me my snap moments tend to be like things have compiled. I haven't processed the emotions from everything else going on. And then one person probably said something to me that probably wouldn't have been a huge trigger on its own. But because it was added to everything else I was going through at that moment, I was just like, I've had enough. And so I snapped at him. I cursed him out. I ran out to the hallway because this is after school and the cheerleaders were there. I remember crying at the water fountain, and one of the my friends came up like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I hate my band director," and I'm in high school. And so the next day, obviously, we had to talk about what had happened and things like that. And I apologized, and we worked that through. So when I think about my history of snapping, I'm like, wow, you've had a lot of snap moments. There were some snap moments in college, which put me into anger therapy again. So I actually went to a therapist when I was in college. I would fight with my friends a lot, a lot. And I lost so many friends in college because I would say so many mean things when I was having a snap moment. And there's only so much you can ask people to appreciate, to tolerate. You know, a lot of people love being my friend. I love being friends with a lot of people, but I do come with a lot. Almost every single one of my friends have had me snap at them at least once. And some of them, not that they're weak or anything, but some of them are just like, you know what? I'm not going to fight back with you. I'm going to give you your moment and I'm just going to move on. And some of them like, no, we're no longer friends. Like I'm not going to keep having you snap at me like that. And I get it. And I used to be prideful in that. I was like, well, I'm not changing. If you don't want to be my friend, blah, 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 you know. But I've lost some really great friends over the years. And now being 36 years old, you know, I'm not in my like early 20s in high school. I think about it and I'm like, dang, like, you know, you could have handled those situations a little bit differently, but I didn't. And so in college, there was a group of 4 of us that were really good friends. My best friend from college, Tarina, there were like probably 6-month stints every now and then where I didn't talk to her. Probably everybody in college I was friends with, I didn't talk to at one point. There was an incident where I got really mad. I like threw something in the dorm room and it was like, it broke. I forgot what it was. It was some symbolization of our friendship. I think we called ourselves the 4 turtles, and each of us got something that had our colors of the 4 Ninja Turtles. I forget which turtle I was, purple, Raphael, whatever was the angry turtle was the one I was. I forget which one it is, Raphael, Michelangelo, whatever. I don't remember. And I got mad one night, and I like threw it, and it was a glass thing, so it shattered, and I was in the dorm room by myself. And so my roommate came in, and she saw like things were broken, and she just like turned and walked out. And so I think about like, gosh, I had like some snap moments. And then, okay, so now I'm not, you know, I'm an adult now. I graduated. I'm not going to have these incidents anymore. But did I have some? I still had some. I would have them with friends, especially in the blogger community. I had a few snap moments with some bloggers that I didn't like or I thought were pushy and stuff like that. I also had snap moments at work, like if people would say something to me. And I say pretty mean things when I snap. And sometimes I'll like threaten violence. I really don't mean it, but what triggered this live was that last week or earlier this week, somebody posted something stupid in a group that I'm in on a comment about like gender roles and stuff like that for like females and males. And the comment was made that a real man isn't in the kitchen wearing an apron cooking. Like if they've got an able-bodied wife, that they should be telling her to fix them plates. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But it triggered me because my dad, who you guys know, I'm very close to my family. My dad actually did a lot of the cooking in our family. And I would say my dad is probably more of a real man than like all these little young guys out here today who I don't know. My dad is a real man. And when I saw that comment about him trying to say like men aren't real men if they cook, first of all, not even just my dad, there are 1,001,000 men that cook. There are chefs, people who do it for a living. Some men just love to cook. And I don't understand how that makes you not a real man. And he's just, this person seems to be so stuck in like the 1800s of like what roles to be. And that was just a trigger for me. It's like, no one's going to insult my dad. Even though he didn't say it to my dad, I just felt like it was a blanket statement that was trying to call men who cook weak. And so I like had this snap moment. I was like, if I saw you in person, I'd probably punch you in the face. Like I typed it in the comments. And then I was like, okay, I was going to punch somebody in the face because they made like a generalization comment that they didn't really even say directly to my dad. So I thought about it later. I was like, oh my gosh, you had like another snap moment. Like you said you were going to do something violent. There was a time where I snapped at my manager, and that's why I lost my job at Conica, because I cursed my manager out in HR, told him he was terrible. So anyway, my point is I have a history of snap anger moments. And fortunately, it's only been vocal. My actions from that have been vocal. I have had some snap moments that were physical, not as far as me physically fighting somebody, but doing something physical, like the time somebody's parked in my parking spot at my last apartment complex, and I blocked them with my car, and I put masking tape on the car with signs that say, get out of my spot. It was a day I had a really bad day at work. Something was going on with one of our pumps. I was there late. I was getting in trouble at work for the project. I got home. I just wanted to park in my spot. Somebody was there at my apartment complex, said they would tow them. They didn't tow them. So I was pissed. I was pissed at the concierge. I was pissed at the apartment. I was pissed at the car. And I realized, well, I probably wasn't even really pissed at any of that stuff. I was just mad about the day. And so my dad actually is one of the people who can get me to calm down. So he got me to calm down and go move my car, but I still left all my signs and stuff. So I got a nice nasty letter back from the person whose friend it was who was visiting, saying like it was an accident. You're such a psycho. Why would you freak out like that? You're doing the most. Like my friend didn't mean to park in your spot. It was, and it was an accident. And I was ripping and running, trying to like bring World War III into it because it's somebody parked in my spot when there's 1,000,001 spots available in my complex. So just things like that. So I have come to the realization I do have these snap moments. So when I took a training a long time ago, management and leadership training, when I was at Conica, and said that of which you are not aware, you cannot fix, or like you cannot change. And some people want to be in denial about their anger issues or their anxiety or having strong emotions. And that's not helpful. I have recognized that I have anger issues. I know that I have triggers, and being aware of that has probably allowed me not to have as many snap moments and triggers. So another one that happened last year was somebody made a joke about cats being skinned alive. And a girl said something kind of nasty to me because I made an analogy to children. I was like, see, it's not funny to me the way it's not funny if it was children they were putting in that post, because cats to me are like my kids. So it's not funny to you if it was children. It's not funny to me that it's cats. And then she said something snappy, and I like called her the B word and went off again. But now, like, I feel like people may try to purposely trigger me with cat stuff. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you get to me again. I'm not going to let you do that. I know you're probably trying to get a response. Politics, another thing. I do still struggle not to respond to people who disagree with me on politics, but it tends to be less snap moments on that. It tends to just be like a normal debate back and forth. I don't really end up like snapping anybody over politics. I'm just like, if you believe in Trump, I feel really bad for you. You know what I mean? So I've kind of learned some things, but I'm 36 and I still just had that recent trigger moment where I had threatened to punch somebody. So I'm just like, I don't think I would have really did it in person. I think I just said it. And then later I'm like, gosh, you look kind of crazy, Shalonda. You're saying this kind of things. I did apologize to that person. I said that, but violence is never the answer. Violence is never the answer to anything. But I just recognizing the fact that I have these types of responses can maybe get me in trouble one day. One day somebody cut me off on the road, and I followed him into the gas station. I live in Texas, and I hopped out of my car, and he got out the car, and I like started screaming at him like, didn't you see me? And that's that road rage anger, and he could have shot me or who knows what else. Like you've got to figure out a way to like know your anger and like try to find some way to not let it get the best of you like that, or have these unfavorable reactions. I think it's very unlikely for anybody to for somebody not to feel anger. I feel like it's silly to tell people they can't feel angry. I feel like, I know like in the Bible it talks about righteous anger and all that stuff, but honestly, I believe like God gave us all these emotions to feel. And I feel like you really can't exist without anger. Like you can't be happy if you don't know what anger is. And so to tell somebody that like feeling angry is bad or you're going to go to hell, I think like that's silly to me. And that's just something like with religion, like I'm just really not into, because I think it's ridiculous to tell somebody that they're never going to feel angry or they shouldn't, because you will. It's just what you do with that anger. How do you respond to it? You don't want to be someone who's angry and you go into a Walmart and shoot up the world because you got mad because somebody in your high school made fun of you. And yeah, being bullied is terrible, but now you went and killed a whole bunch of people who had nothing to do with you being bullied, but you were just mad at the world. So you really need to figure out what your response is to your anger. And there are many things. And there's nothing wrong with going into anger management therapy. I didn't like my first guy. The therapist I had in college was pretty cool. And I still struggle with it today. Like I said, I have my trigger moments. You just need to be aware. And like, sometimes I get really, really mad about stuff. Like I'll get so angry that I won't feel any empathy at all. Like when Trump got COVID, I've despised that man and I didn't really feel anything at all. I was just like, well, sometimes you get what you get. Or like, I even hate to say it, like with George Floyd, it really made me dislike cops even more. So I try to like feel a little bad when something bad happens to cops, because I know not all cops are evil. I know deep down in my heart and in my head that not every single cop is racist and out there trying to kill Black people. But when I'm constantly bombarded with images of my people being killed or anybody being killed by the police, taking advantage of their power and just taking advantage of people, it's really hard for me to see cops in the real world and be like, oh, hey, like I kind of like have this feeling of like nervousness, or I look at them like I don't like you. And when I do things like that, I realize it's the same thing that like people who are racist do and stuff like that. They have no, like, maybe they have one bad encounter with a black person, and now they hate all black people, and they think all black people are lazy and black people are bad. And so I'm doing the exact same thing. May not be racism, but I'm categorizing an entire group of people based on the actions of a few. And it's nonsensical, but that's sometimes how the mind works. So anger can really get you in trouble. I've lost friends. I had a really bad snap moment at my sister earlier this year, and I couldn't get over that for a while. I felt so guilty about it. Like, I love my family, and it was all around the quarantine stuff. And, but I really, at the beginning of quarantine, I didn't really understand how people were still trying to go out. Well, like when quarantine ended, I didn't understand how people were going out and going to restaurants and being so unsafe. And I was being so judgmental about it. And like, I think I was just more jealous. I was still stuck in the house. I snapped at my sister. And it wasn't even really her. It was like I was snapping at her for everybody I saw that was out. And she just happened to be the one person that said something at that time when I have been holding that all in of like, why are these people so stupid? And I snapped at my own sister and I cried and I was so upset. And we moved past it, but like that's probably the first time I've ever snapped at my sister, and I hated that I did that. I hated it. And I'm always like that meme. I don't know if you saw the meme I posted where like my snappage is so crazy. Like I'll say the craziest thing, the meanest things to people, and then later I'll be like crying, trying to apologize for it. And honestly, I don't fault people who don't take my apology. Why should they continue to hear mean things from somebody that's supposed to love them and be their friend? Like if you love somebody, you be your friend, you don't keep saying mean things to them, even if you're mad. So I understand why I've lost friends, and I've come to terms with it. And I'm tired of losing friends. So that's another reason I want to talk to you about my anger, because you need to find a way to control it and manage it, or manage your response to it, because you can lose people in your life. And that's just going to make you feel sad. All right, so that's my story with anger. So we can hop to anxiety real quick. I think I've always had anxiety issues, but I never knew I had anxiety. I didn't know what it was called. My mom actually thinks I might have had ADHD and stuff when I was younger, but I somehow managed to get through school, so we never got the diagnosis and stuff like that. I officially was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder in 2011, but I wholeheartedly believe I had always had it. Anxiety is one of the reasons that also makes me lash out. If I have a bulk of fear and emotion, or just any type of emotion in general, like my triggers, so I get really excited and I just need to burst. So whether it's a panic attack burstment or a snappage moment, there's a buildup of something and I'll start freaking out. So either I'm getting really, really angry, or I'm having like anxiety issues, panic attacks, or I'm snapping at somebody. It really didn't become real to me that I was really going through something until I had a terrible breakup. I thought I was going to marry a said person, and found out that they were untrue to me. And it put me in this trigger motion of I was going to be single forever, and I became really depressed, and I just couldn't function. Like I was having panic attacks that I'm never going to get married. There's always going to be somebody prettier than me or whatever that the guy's going to leave me for. So how am I ever going to feel trustful in any future relationship? I just started having anxiety about my personal life and where I was going to go, if I was ever going to have a family. And so I'd like stopped going to work. I don't know if you guys remember when I said I was having issues with my first company and my work experience, one where I had kind of stopped going to work. And that was around that time. I just couldn't motivate myself to get out of bed. I was just having extreme panic every day. And I didn't realize at the time there was something called EAPs, or employee assistance programs, or I could have went to therapy and maybe had that handled. So I did start going to therapy afterwards, but it still wasn't helping me get to work because I just couldn't handle. Like one of the best therapists I've ever had in my life, Mickey Washburn, I was actually recommended to her by a friend. And she was one of the best therapists I've ever had. She got me through that. Her and Adele and Prayer and my family. And I had some like really great friends I had a couple friends that one was laid off in their role at their jobs, and she was kind of free. And so she would come over and help me. So I was doing psycho stuff. I was like, I would drive by his house. I'm like, is he with somebody? Like I was just like not in a good state. I was crying all the time, panic attacks, wondering like where he was. And so I think, let me back up. I didn't break up with him right away after I found out about the cheating stuff. I tried to still make it work because I was in love. And that's what really wrecked me, because I had no trust. Anytime he didn't answer the phone, I would freak out. I would get in my car. I'm like, why is he not answering the phone? Is he with a girl? And I would go like kind of circle his favorite spots, just psycho stuff. Like just, I was unhinged. Like loving this guy, and like I don't, so I was like, what am I doing? This isn't me. Like, I am driving around the city, I'm not going to work, wondering where my boyfriend is, and I'm not going to live this way. So finally, when I finally just ended it, then the other anxiety triggered on about like never finding anybody again. And I think that might have been a reason why I stayed with him after the cheating thing, because I was like, I'm never going to find anybody. So this is the best I'm going to get. And now I'm 36, I'm still single, and I'm actually kind of okay with that. And I realized I would rather be single than ever settle for being in a relationship or a situation like that, where every time somebody doesn't answer the phone, my first thought is that they're cheating on me. I'm not going to be in a marriage like that for however many years. You know what I mean? So I got past that, but that was the beginning of my anxiety. So the trust gave me so much anxiety. If he didn't answer the phone, my stomach would start hurting. I would get panic attacks. It would manifest physically. And I would be like, where is he? Where is he? And I would have these extreme panics. So I finally had to get on some medicine. And I was like, so I have been on anxiety medicine pretty much since 2011. So now I've got anxiety and anger. But again, I think I've always had the anxiety. I think that triggers some of my anger issues. I think they're all connected. I think all your emotions are connected. I don't think there's like this line of happy, line of sad, happy, line of anger. Like there's a line between every go in an extreme in any emotion. And even extreme happiness may be a problem, because maybe you get a little boastful or too prideful, etc. Who knows? But I think extreme in any of the emotions is not great. Kind of like the same with anything you eat. Anything in extreme is bad. But yeah, so I have been anxiety is probably the biggest one I have issue. I do get mad, angry wise. I used to like rant and rave in online journals about people because they would make me mad. But for the most part, I think I've gotten to a point where I know sometimes the people are triggering me, and I might say something on Facebook, but it doesn't really like translate into real life. Like somebody may make me mad on Facebook, but I get off and I go on about my day. Like when I had that big argument with people over cats and saying the B word, like I just moved on. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to happy hour tonight. So I feel like sometimes it's like an online persona of me getting mad at people, but I'm not letting it affect my real life. But anxiety affects my real life. It does. It's one of the reasons I hadn't seen my family in years, because I was too afraid to fly. Didn't want to get on a plane. So like things like that actually manifest and change how I behave in real life. So dealing with my anxiety is probably the biggest thing I want to deal with. And I'm still dealing with it. And now that I'm back to working again, I'm definitely planning on trying to go back into therapy to try to just get some more tips on anxiety. There is what is it called? Diabolical? No. Mickey gave me a book. I think it's called Dialectric Therapy. I don't know. I have to get the book. There's a book that she gave me to go through, like a workbook for dealing with anxiety. It begins with a D. I can't think of what the word is. But when I find it, I'll put it in the comments. So I'm going to try to go back through that again. I just want to be free of anxiety. I think there is such a thing as good anxiety. I feel like you need to have some anxiety. And for those of you who don't really understand what it feels like to have anxiety, the one way I can describe it to you is, so to explain anxiety in general, how your brain works is, something happens, you start to feel a little weird about it. Like, let's say you're walking at night and you see a dark alley and you're like, ooh, trigger. Like, I feel like probably shouldn't go down this dark alley at 11 o'clock at night by myself as a female. There may or may not be anything in there. You may make it through the alley, but you still get like this weird, uncomfortable feeling of this is good anxiety. I should probably go a more lit pathway. And then you take the more lit path. I feel like that's when you have good anxiety. What I feel is my bad anxiety is not being able to turn off that anxiety when the moment is past. So imagine something happened to you that's your biggest fear in your entire life, like whatever your biggest fear is in life. And I don't know, let's say you're afraid of falling from height or whatever, falling from height. So you get up there to a location that's for heights, and you start feeling really super, super scared. Like your body, like you're like almost breathing. Your body feels like this inside, and you may start to be like I can't breathe, like, oh my God, like, why are we so high up in the air? But then you get removed from the height and you calm down and you're able to, get back to a normal level of feeling and emotion. People with anxiety can't do that on their own. but that's the problem. We struggle coming back down, even if the situation is like not happening. Like, for instance, I get nervous just driving people to the airport. I took my friend to the airport last week. She went home for Christmas, and my anxiety was high just driving to the airport because my experiences with flying is just so bad that, like, even anytime I get near airports, I start feeling like this. And so, like, I literally like had to calm down a little bit. So I think it's, if I'm saying this wrong, I think it's the amygdala that starts firing off like freak out, freak out, freak out. And your frontal lobe is supposed to like tell your amygdala to calm down, like when the situation is passed or when things are cleared. Like, it's okay, nothing's happening. But there's like a disconnect between those two parts of your brain when you have anxiety, and you can't calm down. Like, the frontal lobe does not send the signal, or sends it and something's blocking it or something happens. So it's more than just like when people tell people with anxiety to calm down, it's not like we love staying in that state of panic. It's not like I enjoy being on an airplane, literally scared to death to the point, like, I feel like my heart is racing. I was like, no one wants to feel that. Do you think I want to feel that? If I could tell myself to calm the freak down, I would. Like, why would I want to feel this way? So you can't just tell people. That's what the problem with them. People mean well. They're like, calm down. It's going to be okay. They'll tell me the stats, the numbers applying. That's frontal lobe shit. It doesn't help like, I'm still freaking out. My brain is still freaking out. What you're giving me is not working. I need drugs. At the end of the day, that's what it is. Honestly, there is a disconnect, an imbalance. Something is stopping your body from being able to calm down. And that's why you take anxiety meds. And there's like two types. There's the extreme trauma type, like when you're about to have a panic attack and like your Valiums of the world. There's another one that begins with C. And then there's ones for daily maintenance, like Zoloft. And like a lot of these medicines are for anxiety and depression because, again, that line between anxiety and depression is very thin. Like, I've never been diagnosed with depression. Some of the meds I've taken have been, this is for anxiety and depression, but I've never really suffered from depression. Definitely suffered from anxiety. So I just wanted you guys to be aware that, like, imagine sitting in that state of fear. Like, you can't do anything to get out of it. Like, you can't calm down. Like, you can't calm yourself down. Like, you need to, like, it's a terrible feeling. There's nothing to be happy about to having general anxiety disorder. I'm not proud that I can tell you, oh, I can sit with no. It's a terrible experience, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Panic attacks are terrible. You really feel like you're dying. You feel like you can't breathe, and your heart's breaking. You feel like you're having a heart attack. You literally feel like you're having heart attack symptoms. It's not cute. It's not fun. There's no cool club to be like, oh, I've got anxiety. Let's join the anxiety club. No, you don't want to be here. But there's nothing wrong with admitting that you do have it. And if you do, there's nothing wrong with going to therapy, and there's nothing wrong with getting meds. I know a lot of it seems to be some stigma in the African-American community that Black people don't need therapy, or we just need to pray to God and we don't need medicine and stuff for things like that. And that's, to me, that's again some BS. It's just another way to try to keep us down, our own community keeping us down. God has given talents to people to help people with issues. Yes, I know we have a history of not being trustworthy with the medical field, but seriously, there are medicines out there that help you if you're dealing with anxiety and depression. And I know a lot of people don't want to be on meds, and that's great. If you can manage your mental health without medicine, that is amazing. But if you can't, that doesn't make you weak. That doesn't make you a weirdo or somebody society should shun. That means you're real. And that means, like, nobody else in society is going to be dealing with your anxiety. You are. You have to sit there and deal with that panic attack. Joe Schmo, who might be like, oh, why are you taking anxiety medicine, is living his little blissful, happy life. He's not sitting there in panic. You are. And you're not going to take medicine and take yourself out of panic because you're worried about Joe Schmo down the street? No, y'all, no. That's my biggest issue with the mental health field, is everyone's just worried about a stigma, so they won't help themselves. And who says you even have to tell anybody? Like, if you want to go get mental health first, you don't have to broadcast it the way I do. I don't care, because I'm not going to let anybody affect how I feel internally. I'm not going to sit in anxiety because I'm worried about society's thoughts of me taking some Zoloft. No. But if that really is a concern for you, you don't need to tell people. Go get the help that you need. Do what you need to do for yourself. I think it's great if you can manage your mental health without the meds. And that's one of the diabolical, no, that's not diabolical, that's an evil word. The dialectic behavioral therapy thing that Michelle, my therapist, gave me. It's a workbook to help you train your thoughts, so your thoughts can actually try to help you. So you can try to maybe rebuild those disconnects between your frontal lobe and the amygdala to try to help you calm down. So there are many ways to try to work on dealing with your mental health. I'm just saying that if it comes to meds, if you need to be on meds for a little bit, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be on meds for the rest of your life. Like I said, I think I outgrew the crazy anger management issues, but I still have my triggers. But I'm definitely not walking around punching walls and stuff like that when I was younger. So, I mean, like, you know, sometimes you might just grow out of it. Maybe something happens to your brain and something reconnects or something like that. I don't really know. The brain is such a mystery. I will recommend that you guys watch The Mind Explained on Netflix. That series is amazing. They have a whole episode on anxiety, and it's so amazing. Like, that's where I learned like a lot of this stuff about like what really causes my anxiety. So anyway, but yeah, but the point is, whether it's taking meds, whether it's trying to refocus your thoughts, whether it's getting a therapist, do something about it. Don't just let yourself have to sit there in your anger and your anxiety and not find a way to manage it and deal with it because of what society is saying. There's nothing wrong with you if you have mental health issue. It's the same type of issue as having cancer or diabetes. It's a disease. It's a sickness, just like any other sickness, and you treat it. You don't get COVID and you don't do anything about it. You don't get the flu. You take flu shots for the flu. So mental health is also it's an additional issue as well. So you should treat it, treat it, whatever way that looks like for you. My biggest hope for this broadcast is that I get more and more people to stop caring about what other people think about how you live your life and how you take care of your own mental health. Because once again, as I've already stated, they are not sitting there dealing with the anxiety. As much as they want to take it from you, maybe, as much as they want you to calm down, as much as they're freaking out because they don't know what to do because you're the one in the panic attack and they don't know how to help you, they still aren't living it. You are. So they can tell you all the stats in the world, tell you everything to help you, try to calm you down. And people really do mean well. So I don't want you to go out there and like start cursing out your friends, but just understand they mean well. They don't really know what to do for people with anxiety. All they know is like, oh, somebody's afraid. Let me tell them things to help them to calm down. Or the initial thing is to tell you to calm down because you're freaking out. So you need to calm down. And it doesn't always work, but they mean well. But if you need more help than just words, talk to somebody, psychiatrist, therapist, get some meds. You can even talk to your PCP. I actually get my anxiety meds from my PCP now because I don't have a psychiatrist right now. And actually the psychiatrist and PCP can prescribe medicines. The therapist doesn't really prescribe medicine. They just kind of talk you through your therapy. But I do recommend if you're going to need to go on a more stronger medicinal track that you actually get a psychiatrist who specializes in knowing the right types of medicines. Then you may have to go through different ones. Not every medicine works the same for every person. Like I know some, like Zoloft for some people may make them gain weight, or some medicines sometimes make you have suicidal thoughts. And that's really not great if you're already depressed. So you just have to like trial and error, unfortunately. That's where it is with the medicine, with the mental health field right now. And sometimes it takes a while for a medicine to kick in. Like anytime I've switched between medicines, it's usually like a 3 or 4 months before I start feeling like any different. Because one, I need to tell y'all this. You should never just stop cold turkey on mental health medicines. It's really bad for you. You can have seizures and things like that. Your body has now become accustomed to taking that. If you want to get off of your anxiety medicine, the best way to do it is to wean off of it. And your psychiatrist or your PCP will look up each medicine has their like own way of weaning off of it. So you don't just go from like, especially if you had your dosages increased, like let's say you got to 50 milligrams or something, you don't just stop cold turkey. What you would do is more than likely you keep taking your 50 milligrams every day. And then the next week you drop to 25. The next week you drop to 20. The next week, so on until you get down to 0. You don't stop mental health medicines cold turkey. And all psychiatrists, therapists, PCPs will tell you that. It's not like Motrin. It's not like those types of things. This is affecting your brain. So it needs to be a controlled exit. And then when you start the new medicine, you start on a lower dosage, see how it's doing for you. You got to wait for that to kick in. If it's not working, it may not mean the medicine isn't working yet. It may mean you might need a higher dosage. So there's just so many variables. Like everybody's body's different. How everybody responds to these medicines is different. That's why it's good to have a psychiatrist or a doctor to talk to about it. Don't talk to your friends about what they've been taking. You can talk to them and be like, hey, how was your experience with Zoloft? And they might tell you something, but that doesn't mean it's going to be your experience with Zoloft or Lexapro or the millions of other ones. So you can have a different experience. Like right now I'm on Prozac. I take the generic type, and it got bumped up with quarantine because I literally was having a hard time at the beginning of quarantine. Because I thought every single symptom, any sneeze, any cough was like COVID, and I couldn't sleep. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have COVID, I have COVID, I have COVID. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I had to start taking some Valium and that, because normally I only take Valium to fly. I really only need my extreme control of anxiety normally when I'm getting on a plane. But with COVID, I started having more anxiety at home, and I need to start taking some Valium here. So they upped my daily maintenance drug. So if you have any questions about anger, being an empath, or anxiety issues, talk to me. Ask your friends. I'm not a therapist. I will not be diagnosing you or anything like that. What I will be doing is encouraging you to go talk to a medical professional who does know more about this stuff. And all I can do is give you my experiences with things. I'm not going to diagnose anybody's anxiety or something. If you think you have that and you want to talk and see if your experiences are similar to mine or somebody else's, I am always open. So, all right. Well, yeah. So that's all I have for tonight. My lives are probably going to go down to once a week, because even though I'm working part-time at TCS, I have become super exhausted after working there. My body is yet adjusted. This was like my first full week there this week, guys. So my body is yet to adjust to like running around on the retail floor. I wanted to like do that job and then come home and do Uber in the evenings. And I'm like, woo, child, you're going to have to do Uber on your days off, because the days I work at TCS, I'm like, all I know is I better be super skinny by the time I am done. I want to be super skinny, because all these steps I'm getting and calories I'm burning every day at the store, great. But anyway, yeah. So probably going to go down to Sundays only. And I'm probably going to start bringing on more guests starting in the new year. It's a little hard right now. People are with their families. They are, it's Christmas time and New Year. So everybody's kind of like booked or doing whatever. So I'm going to start bringing guests back on starting in the new year. So thank you guys for listening to me. And I really hope if you are out there dealing with anger and anxiety that you feel okay to go get the help that you need. Again, you don't need to broadcast it to everybody if you don't want to, but don't let society force you to suffer in silence or just suffer, period. So, okay. Love you guys. See you later.